everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Commanding on a Budget. Over the past few weeks, I've received quite a few requests and deck lists for the next episode. In case any of you are wondering how I plan on choosing the commander from week to week, I have no system. I simply pick a commander that looks like fun to build around, and I think up a deck. I will accept deck submissions so long as you follow the guidelines, but I'll choose which decks to feature. I'm doing this series because I like a good mix of tested decks and fun ideas. Not to mention I love deck building. I can't let you guys have all the fun. This week's budget pick is Silklash Spider. He's a champion blocker who can keep the skies clear, and he's been printed in 3 sets, so he's less than $1. This episode's featured general is Lazav Dimir Mastermind. He's a 3/3 hexproof for 4 mana that can copy creatures when they hit your opponent's graveyards. It doesn't matter if they die, are milled, or discarded, which makes Lazav a commander who is the embodiment of the Dimir. I know that the return to Ravnica has created a lot of new Dimir fans, so I thought I would build a deck that makes Lazav awesome while staying on theme for the guild. This deck can be built for just under $50. The Dimir are masters of impersonation and manipulation, so having more ways to steal and clone creatures seems both appropriate and powerful. Clone and Quicksilver Gargantuan are copy dudes. Cackling Counterpart can't copy your opponent's creatures, but it's an instant with flashback, which makes for some awesome plays. Dimir Doppelganger and Body Double can copy all those creatures that you've been putting into graveyards. Evil Twin is a cool clone who kills the original copy. Beguiler of Wills steals creatures and lets you keep them when she untaps. This deck plays quite a few creatures, so you shouldn't have too much trouble finding something to steal. Stolen Identity and Phyrexian Metamorph let you copy creatures or artifacts, and Stolen Identity can do it more than once. Nightveil Spectre. Being a spectre that allows you to play other people's stuff is about as Dimir as it gets. Phyrexian Infiltrator is like a budget gilded Drake. The cool thing about this guy is that you can stack the triggers so that you can trade a creature other than Phyrexian Infiltrator for their creature, giving you a permanent way to steal creatures. Sphinx Ambassador is a repeatable bribery. Don't be intimidated by the wall of text. The trick with Sphinx Ambassador is to not pick their best creature. Mana fixing is always handy to have. Jesse and Zombies finds islands or swamps, or can be a body if you need one. Liliana's Shade can only find swamps, but is a good beater. Watery Grave is a swamp, so if you pick one up for the deck, you can tutor it up with this card. Vessel of Endless Rest is a mana rock that also acts as graveyard hate. Pilgrim's Eye and Armillary Sphere find basics. Dimir Keyrune fixes mana and is awesome with cipher cards. Draw Power is very easy to find in blue-black, even on a budget. This deck may run a lot more card draw for everyone than usual, but only because those effects also force them to discard. Consult the Necrosages can be either Divination or Mind Rot. Jace's Archivist taps to Windfall, which will help you dig through your deck, while making your opponents dump all sort of goodies for Lazav into the graveyard. Azure Mage is a cheap body that allows you to sink extra mana into card draw. Mask of Riddles turns a creature into Shadow Mage Infiltrator. Lore Broker is a looter that affects everyone. Magus of the Jar. If you activate this guy at the end of the turn before yours, your opponents will be staring at a lot of cards they can't play, and after you've had a turn to play yours, they'll get to discard a bunch of awesome stuff. Mulldrifter. Divination if you need it, or 2 cards and a flying body. Telling Time lets you do a bit of digging. Being able to ship a useless card to the bottom of your library is always great. You don't want too much of what you do to get cards in graveyards to be forcing your opponents to draw cards. Here are some other ways to accomplish that instead. Consuming Aberration, a huge fatty that makes himself bigger. Geralf's Mind Crusher. He may only be a vanilla 5/5, but he mills 10 cards and can trade with a Titan when he comes back. Psychic Spiral. Recycles your graveyard while making one opponent very sad. Undercity Informer lets you turn creatures like Pilgrim's Eye into mill. Not to mention, having a sack outlet when you play cards like Geth, Lord of the Vault, and Havengul Lich can make for some crazy plays. Liliana's Spectre is cheap early game discard on a nice flying body. Scythe Spectre. Making everyone discard is great, but having someone else lose life for having discarded the most expensive spell is even better. Stronghold Rats. You'll have to discard to this guy as well, but for opponents with no way to draw cards, this ability will get annoying very quickly. Next we have the utility cards. In a non-budget blue-black deck, tutors and counter magic would probably need their own categories, but here there's just enough to smooth things out. Dimir Charm. Choose one. Counter target Insurrection, destroy target Trostani, or mess up a top of the library tutor. That's not the text box, but you get the picture. Suffer the Past helps handle graveyard-based decks you might otherwise help. Elgwad Shieldmate is a cheap way to protect a creature you want to stick around. Midnight Recovery. Ciphering this on a creature gives you a way to get creatures back and reuse them, which is helpful with all the cards in the deck that make you discard. Psychic Strike, Dismal Failure, and Induce Paranoia are all counter spells that have some mill attached. Soul Manipulation is like having Essence Scatter stapled to Disentomb. Clutch of the Undercity and Perplex allow you to transmute at 3 and 4 converted mana cost. Increasing Ambition is a tutor that you can use twice, or once if you have to pitch it. If you're going to be forcing your opponents to put things in their graveyards for Lazav, why not steal some of it? Rise from the Grave, Sepulchral Primordial, and Chainer Dementia Master allow you to raid other people's graveyards for creatures. Diluvian Primordial, Rexiel the Risen Deep, and Memory Plunder let you steal instants and sorceries that aren't in your part of the color pie. Havengul Lich lets you play creatures from other people's graveyards if they're blue or black, and can also replay your own creatures. Geth, Lord of the Vault, lets you steal creatures and artifacts. Thanks for the Gilded Lotus! Grave Betrayal. Creatures in Commander have a way of dying all the time, and that means you'll get them. No blue-black deck would be complete without some good old-fashioned removal. Grisly Spectacle lets you tack some mill onto your removal. Life's Finale is a sweeper that lets you put some goodies in a graveyard to steal. Dark Imposter. This guy was in the wrong set. The fact that he exiles creatures and then takes over part of their identity feels really Dimir. Phyrexian Ingester, the budget duplicate. Even though you want to steal creatures from graveyards, sometimes you just have to exile them, because someone else can abuse them more effectively. Aetherize. It may not be a sweeper, but it will save you from an alpha strike and force them to rebuild. Pure gold against tokens. Tragic Slip. Requires Morbid to be really useful, but it can kill indestructible creatures like Ulamog and Blightsteel Colossus. Murder. Kills any creature with no restriction on color or type. Disembowel. Another instant speed, no color restriction removal spell with the bonus of original Ravnica style points. Now for the lands. Bad River, Bajuka Bog, Dimir Aqueduct, Dreadship Reef, Duskmantle House of Shadow, Esper Panorama, Evolving Wilds, Frostmarsh, Grixis Panorama, Jwar Al Refuge, Nephalia Drownyard, Saltmarsh, Tainted Isle, Terramorphic Expanse, Transguild Promenade, and 11 swamps and 12 islands. Next, we have some non-budget acquisitions for the deck. Gilded Drake and Bribery would be great additions because they're 2 more ways to steal other people's creatures. Sakashima the Imposter and Sakashima Student are really cool clones. Ink Eye's Servant of Oni is a really cheap way to reanimate creatures. You should build this deck if you love cards like Clone and Rise from the Grave. You are a fan of the Dimir. You want a blue-black deck that isn't control. You like mill, but don't want that to be your win condition. Thanks for watching this episode of Commanding on a Budget. Since this deck focused on a new general, I tried to include a lot of cards from recent sets. I'm not the biggest Dimir fan, but building this deck has given me an appreciation for the guild and its mechanics. What's your favorite new commander from the Return to Ravnica block? Let me know in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching.